let's just talk to you a bit about Folio. I have brought physical product with me because our books are so beautiful, and I will show you them as I go through. The Folio Society was set up 70 years ago in 1947, and almost from the start, we sold direct to consumer, which was an incredibly unusual thing back in 1947. But it was because it was difficult, I think, for us to get the distribution we wanted even then in retail, and I will come back to that. Right from then, we've been privately owned. We were bought by a man called Bob Gavron back in '83, and are still now owned by the Gavron family. And we are the last illustrated hardback publisher left standing. So we now have a unique position in the world. And I think it's quite interesting that we combine, therefore, that old-fashioned sort of values with some very exciting new technology in terms of selling. So I'll come back as we go through this to that statement. And that's kind of our strap line. Love books, love Folio. So we were set up by a man called Charles Eade, and this is what he was trying to do. He was trying to create editions of the world's greatest literature in a format worthy of the contents at a price within the reach of every man. Don't you love it? Oh, I love working in books, it's great. Their words are so wonderful. They can also spell anything, and I'm dyslexic, so this is quite scary for me. But it is great in that respect. So what were we about? What were our old tricks? Well, we were kind of an old sort of fashioned book club. Many of you will remember that. So we had membership. To buy from us, you had to be a member, and you had to buy 4 books to become a member. We sent you printed catalogues, and we only sent them to members. Occasionally, we sent you sale catalogues, and we spent a fortune acquiring new customers. We had great big, free book offers that gave you the Times Atlas and money off and free books and all sorts of things. So we spent an awful lot of money to bring a new customer in. But for a long time, as many of you in the room will know, this is as a kind of program worked very well. So we kind of went through this evolution. We started off in 1947. We then literally became a book club. We became a club. We had a club in the city in Soho. We then started sending out prospectuses with our books in, and then we became a book club. And then, goodness me, we became an omni-channel customer marketer. Omni-channel without a hyphen, you'll be pleased to know. I found that out in the States last week. And I want to talk to you about how that happened, how we've become now this omni-channel marketer. Or why did we have to become? Why did we have to change? Well, the book club membership model was dying. It just wasn't working anymore. We could not afford to spend what we were spending to bring in new customers. The complexity and scale. So we sell globally. We've always sold around the world. 1/3 of our business is in the UK, 1/3 in the US, and 1/3 is Australia and what we interestingly call the rest of the world. So then you had members, you had lapsed members, you kind of had all these strange categories, and they drove masses of complexity into a tiny business. It was crazy. We needed an integrated marketing approach, which we didn't have. We didn't even have a digital team at that point. There was also, for us, an e-reader explosion. E-readers were going like this, and everybody thought that the written word would the actual physical written word would disappear. Fortunately for us, it hit the paperback market much more than the hardback market. And in fact, last Christmas, one of the biggest selling products, aside from vinyl, was hardback books. So, we've come back into our own. I think we're in that whole retro space. We as an organisation had also become very internally focused. I went into the organisation just under 2 years ago, and the thing that shocked me the most, other than the fact that they still had individual offices, was that, and I obviously didn't sit in one of those, I went and sat amongst the people, was that they never left the office. Nobody went out. So there was no awareness of what you guys were all doing in your marketing, what was happening in the world, what books were coming out, what films were coming out, what TV channels, all of these things are crucial to us. Nobody left the building. You can't run a business if you don't leave the building. And then there was the 2008 crash, which affected all of us. We did have to change. And we realised that the world around us was also changing. And so we just kind of needed to look at our own statistics to see that. These are response channels. So in 2014, as you can see, online was important for us. 40% of our orders came online. That doesn't mean that's how they were driven, but that's where they came. But just 2 years later, it was over half of our response. And now it's even higher than that. And for some books, it's 3/4 or more. And that's taking the response from coupons, from the post. And really what keeps that post number high is Australia. And part of the reason it keeps it high in Australia is because we don't offer 24/7 at the moment. We don't offer 24/7 customer service, so they can't ring us because we're not there in the middle of the night. And I think that therefore drives them to send us coupons back, which is incredibly annoying because they then send us checks. And you all know how difficult checks are. And if you have ever dealt with any Australian bank, you will know how difficult it is to bank their checks. We have to physically send the checks to Australia in big bags. This is not great. Anyway, let's move on. That's my problem, not yours. So let's look at what our new tricks are. Our new tricks are what they've always been, right? It's the right message to the right people at the right time in the right channel. We were all learning this years ago, so nothing has changed. But what has changed is the complexity of the channels. So, when I started, we had direct mail and TV and press and inserts, and, that was kind of fine. And then we got computers, and then we got broadband. And then we all started saying, okay, how can we measure how effectively we're spending our money? And I don't think anybody's quite resolved that yet. And we're still struggling with it. It was interesting to hear Conversant talk this morning, but it's still an issue for us all, and it's become even more complex as we've gone into social media and continue to push those boundaries. We use PR, and I'll come back to that. So what we have to do is look at an individual program. Maybe it's a catalogue season. We have, Christmas catalogue or our January sale catalogue, or maybe we just look at it against an individual book. This is what we expect to sell. This is what we got. But it's very hard now to say if we spend this money here, is it making what we need? And so we're having to allocate those costs differently. But hey, that's fine. That's just part of our challenges. The other thing that's interesting is that in the past, the number of times you needed to touch somebody through all the different media to get them to buy or to be our advocates was far less. But as time has gone on, in the last 10 years, we've needed to reach out and touch those people far more frequently. And you have to do that via lots of different channels to follow up the story and be consistent. Consistency is vitally important. I really like this graph. It might be quite difficult to see for all of you, I don't know, but I really like this. This is a great thing. So in our business, what does that mean? What does omni-channel mean in our new tricks business? Well, reading from the top right round, we print catalogue. We're all talking about that today. And we were in the States last week at the NAMOA conference, and I wanted to find out if print catalogues were still important there. Print catalogues are still really important part of our businesses. I don't know that we all thought they would be, and I know some people like Lewin and stuff have come out of them, but for most of us, print catalogues are still really important part of our business. We have a magazine that goes out talking about what we do. We do retargeting where, if some customer comes and doesn't buy, we stalk them. I know I'm not allowed to say that, but that is what we do. We obviously buy Google terms. Amazon, interestingly, is bidding against us at the moment for Folio, which is very annoying. But we, like all of you, we buy Google terms. Packaging. Our packaging is part of our contact with our customers. Don't ignore it. It is important. The way that all of our stuff turns up for our customers is an important part of what we do. The slip cases on our books, they mark easily. So we make sure when we send our books out, they're bubble wrapped so that they don't get them and they mark. Half our customers hate our slip cases and just throw them away. The other half, however, love them. So if only we knew which half it was, of course, that'd be fine. But hey, here we go. Aren't they beautiful? I'll come back to them after our books. PR, I said earlier, something that we do and really care about, works really well for us is PR. So we work with literary writers on newspapers or blogs or whatever, and they will talk about us. We run events. what PR helps us do is find out the stories we have that go viral. So we use PR as part of our marketing mix and use it very effectively. Emails, CRM emails, obviously emails are important to us. We go to events. We went to Comic-Con last year. We thought Comic-Con might kind of work. We're illustrated books. They loved us. They absolutely loved us. They totally got us. We thought they'd like our sci-fi and crime thrillers with books. That's what we thought they were going to pick up. But they were picking up Jane Austen and going, wow, this is great. And that wasn't what we expected. So, get out there, see who's out there. Social media, again, I'm going to come back to that. Our website, don't go to our website at the moment, it's not great. Go to it after the summer and then it will be lovely. But it still works, but it's not great. So these are all the things we do in our omni-channel marketing. And here I've just kind of identified all the different bits within them. And I'm not going to go through it all because you can read it and you'll probably want your lunch as well. But this just, and I know you can get all this stuff from Lara, this just outlines all the things that we do. So I wanted to just give you a quick case study. This is The Shining. The Shining is not just a film with Jack Nicholson in. The Shining is also a stunning book. It's a book by Stephen King, and this is illustrated by a man called Kinsella, who is also extremely well known in the worlds of illustration. So it's not just the authors that get us noticed anymore, it's also the illustrators. Quentin Blake does lots of work for us. Posey Simmons does work for us. We have lots of very famous illustrators. This book, in the UK, we're selling for $49.95. In the US, for $79.95. That's a case of wine. Well, it can be a case of wine, depending on what you're drinking. They're not cheap. Our books aren't cheap, but every book we have is designed individually. So we'll get the book, we'll decide what paper to use, we'll decide what illustrator to use, we'll talk about the end papers, we talk about the binding, we talk about the spine, we decide what the slipcase should look like. Every part of this book is designed individually for the book. So that might explain partly why it's so expensive. And we still, when we produce it, we stitch them. Everything's done in an artisan and old troubles. This is why people don't like these, because you can't get the books in there. They drive me mad. Anyway, all done in an artisan way. So what did we do for The Shining? What were the omni-channels that we did for The Shining? So we asked, before we started, and this is important, before we started to do anything, we asked the author and the artist to sign some of the books. And this is important, and I'll come back to it. We ran competitions. You won't be surprised to hear that. That was in the print catalogue. It was on our website with the competition pages. We did targeted emails to audiences of people who had bought similar books. And we did social media. All of this was controlled in-house. We did social media featuring the art, the competition, and links to other targeted content. The art often in social media for us is really important, is as important as anything else. So these are the two competitions we did. One was for existing customers who'd purchased, and the other was for non-customers to gain email addresses. Oh, hi, Chris. And the thing we offered for those was the 5 signed copies. And I will, if you hang on a minute, I will tell you what kind of response we got. What paid activity did we do? We did digital retargeting to non-purchasers. We did print and digital advertising in The Guardian and Empire magazine. We create hubs within The Guardian. It works really well for us. We did targeted paid social on Facebook. In fact, Facebook is the biggest acquirer of new customers for us in the US. Facebook's fantastic, and in Australia. Facebook's really strong for us as an acquiring medium. We went onto Instagram in January. It's the first time we started. We sold £2,000 worth of books to somebody within a week. That's massive. We can sell on social media and do across all of the different platforms. And that makes us quite unusual, I think, and that's really exciting. We did paid search, and we did paid search highlighting the competition. What PR did we do? Now, one of the things we do with these is we send them, we find out who's blogging in this area. This is American Gods. We find out who's blogging. IO9 loves stuff like this. There's a strange blogger in Australia called Gizmodo, Starburst. We send them a book. They then start chattering about this book, and it ends up being retweeted and everything else all over the place. American Gods we launched 2 weeks ago. Neil Gaiman is the illustrator, very famous illustrator. Margaret Atwood picked it up. You know, everybody's retweeting. This gets huge excitement, and I'll need to come back to it because it's not just about the book. Then also we went into Washington Post Online, Book Riot, we had a TV review, and as I said, we sent the copies to influencers. So what outreach did we do? We had the Folio stand at Comic-Con, which was incredibly successful for us. We did the social media promotion, and we announced the winners. So lots happens around every single book. And this is just to give you yet another sort of graphic example of everything we're doing that leads back to the book in the middle. We do an enormous amount of work just to sell that individual book. So what was the outcome for The Shining? Put this back, this American Gods. We sold 1,500 books, so that's how many we've sold at the moment. It's only been out for a few months. That's a lot of books for us. And that shows you where we sold them and how people responded to the offer. So 72% of people responded online. That doesn't mean they saw the offer necessarily online, but that's where they responded. Now, within that first purchase of those 1,500 books, we sold another pretty much 4,000 books, totaling £210,000 revenue altogether. So when somebody comes in, they go, oh, Shining, that's great. Oh, well, what else have you got? We'll sell them June, whatever else on top of that. And, you know, these are not cheap events, so it was really exciting. And what about the competitions? How did they do? Well, we got 4,000 names, new names for the competition. And out of those, so far, 235 have bought, spending £60,000 with us. And at Comic-Con, we got nearly 1,500 new names to the company. So I never believed events worked. I thought they were a complete waste of time. I used to run a stand at for Gardening Witch. Do you remember when we used to stand those Gardening Witch stands? God, drove me mad at the Chelsea Flower Show. And, you know, you stood there for days and nothing happened. But Comic-Con did work, and it can work. So think about what's going to work for you. So what have we learnt from this? You have to plan early in a product life. So we got the signed copies before we started. It's really important to do that. Think what I'm going to need as I go through it. Offer something other than the product as a prize. So we offered, for American Gods, we offered a signed print rather than the book itself. So a Neil Gaiman signed print is what we offered. And we've already got more responses, and we're only halfway through the competition for this signed print than we got for Shining. So that's really exciting. We've also found that in social media, soft sell works better than hard sell. What do I mean by that? So we did some tweeting and Facebooking about June. We heard that June was going to be made into a film, which indeed it is, but we didn't know that definitely then. So we tweeted about this and said, you know, June's going to be made in a film. Isn't this interesting? Tens of thousands of people interacted with us, retweeted, got involved, really loved it, interesting. A week later, we sent out a post saying, you know, £10 off June. Nobody responded. So it's actually thinking, what else is out there that's interesting? You know, is there a new vineyard? Is there something about sustainable cotton? What can I talk about to engage my customers that's not just my product? That, for us, works much more strongly than anything else. Make the most of your touch points. You know, use all of them, make them all work really hard, and make sure the story you're telling is the same in every touch point. Don't say one thing one place and something somewhere else. And then look beyond the launch. So when we launched The Shining, it did well, but then we had Halloween. Halloween, great, you know, does fantastically. That did really well for us. And then we had Comic-Con. And American Gods, so we launched that, as I said, 2 weeks ago. This is about, and we sold 1,000 in a week. We sold, via Facebook in the States, we sold 750, and they were They were all new customers to us. That's massive. That's really big stuff. This is about to be made into a show. It's being shown by Stars in the US in a couple of weeks' time, and then it's coming in here on Amazon Prime. We know this will make a big difference to how many books we sell, and we'll be back out there reselling it again. We've just republished The Handmaid's Tale, which is, if you don't buy any of our books, buy The Handmaid's Tale. It is so wonderful. And again, that's going to be out on TV in a while. Margaret Atwood loves us. We are a favourite publisher. And the other thing we notice is that Donald Trump's helped all of our dystopian novel sales, which you'll probably know. In the States, there was a huge spike in dystopian novels, and suddenly things like 1984 came top of the booksellers lists in the States. It's true. And we saw a similar spike in our sales in the US. But it's not just fiction that works. Non-fiction's half of our book sales. And so we had the Agincourt 600-year anniversary last year. You may or may not know, the year before you may or may not know. And we sold an Agincourt book. And BBC History love us. And Juliet Barker, who was the author, she went with the book. She talked about the book. We put postcards on every chair of the people that were there. Everywhere she went, she talked about it. And believe it or not, there are bloggers and there are groups out there. Because, when I was young, you used to kind of mail to the Jane Austen Society. Now you go and find the bloggers and stuff that are talking about it. And there are people out there who reenact Agincourt, and they dress up and they die in ditches. We can get to those people and they will sell our books for us. Look to the people that can do that for you. So I just wanted to... that didn't work. There we go. I just wanted to give you a few stats. We are direct marketers after all. We like a few stats. Just to give you an idea of what we're doing. So print catalogues, we send out about 4 main print catalogues a year. And then very targeted ones. Sort of response on our main print catalogues, around 18% to our current customers, £100 average order value. That's across the world. Obviously, I've made it all into pounds. We do emails. We have high open rates and click-through rates, PPC, digital display, all of the different areas. I thought this was quite interesting just to give you an idea of what we're doing. All this is driven inside Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those are growing told audiences for us. But we get great engagement. It's not surprising, but you can do it too. So, what does this mean? Love folio, love books. I was just thinking, it was interesting, I was at a do last night, and a woman was saying, and Lara said it this morning, how quickly everything's changing. Gosh, everything's changing, and trying to keep up with it, and how can we do it, and digital change. My kids, to them, it's just stuff that they've been doing, and it's just a bit more stuff. It is changing, but it's just more stuff. And as on my way home, I thought about my grandmother, who was born in 1878. She lived through Queen Victoria. She lived through 2 world wars. She lived through the start of electricity, mass transport, radio, TV. She lived through the Great Crash. She even lived long enough to see the Beatles become a global phenomenon. That was huge change. Now, okay, we look back and think that happened over a long period of time, but for her, I suspect, she thought things were changing all the time. It's still happening, but it's nothing new. We are all going to have to deal with change all the time. We find it hard, so we kind of think, it's worse now. It's not worse now, it's just different. And our customers, we just have to understand the way our customers want to do business with us and what they need to see. And, the biggest users of iPads are over 60. We have to make sure that our websites and everything else work on those iPads, because otherwise we're going to lose lots of our customers. So, afterward, refocusing, has it worked? Omni-channel marketing definitely works. Not only has it made a difference to us as a business and made us more profitable, but it's actually a lot more exciting than it was. It's really exciting now. So it's print, catalogues, digital, social media, PR, and the phone. So omni-channel marketing works when the story is planned, coordinated, focuses on the customer and not the business needs. So do what the customer needs. Don't do things because you have to do it before this date because it's the end of your year or whatever it might be. Do it because it's what the customer wants. And if you combine omni-channel marketing with the greatest authors and illustrators, with beautifully crafted hardback books. And there is still life in the old dog. Thank you.